Good morning, Beth. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for allowing me to record this portion of our interview. It's been a pleasure speaking with you about your experience, and I was very impressed with your resume. And I definitely think that you are a most placeable candidate with Ronstad. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a few questions and give you the floor. So, my first question for you, really to get an idea of what type of recruiting that you have done in the past are what type of roles and positions have you sourced and recruited for in the past?
Sure. So I will start with my 4 years at Amazon as a staffing recruiter. So primarily, I was responsible for staffing all of the warehouses in Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland. So that's probably 30 plus warehouses. So I was basically I would go out and do career fairs. I would also do speeches at high schools, places where that's the market that we were trying to get for our warehouse workers. So that was primarily my main thing. Was I was meeting with 150 to 200 candidates a day. We actually moved it from the warehouses out into a hotel situation because of the volume of candidates that we were getting in. So I'm responsible for, as a staffing coordinator, I have staffing help that's underneath me. So I had a group of 8 people that I would help coordinate the entire event from start to finish. So we would start at the beginning of the day. We would check in the candidates. I do all of the work authorization documents, which could be their passports, their license. I also administer drug tests on site. And I also do all of the onboarding, the new hire orientation. So that is me speaking for an hour to our new candidates. So we do them in waves. Every hour, I would get 30 to 40 that would sit into a big classroom. Yes, and
Wow.
they would have to listen to all of the policies and procedures that we have in our warehouses. So I was responsible for that. It was a mandatory thing that they had to get all of this instruction as far as the proper tennis shoes, stretching, all kinds of things. So it was start to finish. And at the end, they were hired. And then I would source them. Basically, I would find based on their location and also based on the warehouse type, because we have XL, we have food warehouses. And so whatever their skill sets, I would try to match their skill set to that. So if it was someone who was working in an XL, that is our extra large warehouses where that's a refrigerator or a kayak and whatnot. I probably wouldn't put someone there that didn't want to lift over 40 pounds.
Sure.
So my main goal and job at the end of the day was putting the right person in the right location,
Hmm.
and also based on where they lived, because Northern Virginia, even though it was maybe 20 minutes down the road, that could probably take you an hour to get there. Right. So that was that job. And then I switched over. I was there for 4 years. And then in October of 2022, I decided to work for Prince William County. I've always enjoyed living in the county that I lived in. And I thought, what better way than to be a public servant and maybe take my skill set to a smaller organization. Well, it's not smaller. Well, it is smaller because Amazon to Prince William County is smaller, but it's a less volume of people that I was hiring. And that way I could kind of hone in on the certain skill sets. So for the county, they decided that I would be in charge of hiring for the library system. And so the library system in our county, there are 16 libraries, and I would go to each library. I would I would write up all of the ads that would be put out in NeoGov. So once I met with the staffing managers, I would find out their needs, because each library had a different need. If they needed a library technician or they needed a youth services library, totally different things. Some libraries didn't really have youth services. They didn't really cater to that part of. So understanding the demographics of our county. You could be part of the county that's very country, and then you could have the city part of the county. So I had to make sure that I understood the needs of that county and that area, especially with the language barriers too, because you had some libraries that needed bilingual. You had other libraries that did not. So my job was to, once I posted that ad into NeoGov, I would do a SME review of all of the applications that I would receive. And I would do pass or fail on which ones, after reading, which takes a long time to read through each ones,
Sure.
because certain librarians do need master's degrees. So that's, just having to understand the job posting you put out, but then understand the applicants that you have is really, it's time consuming, but that's okay because you have to find the right candidate. Because the thing you don't want that you get in Amazon is a lot of turnover. So you
Sure.
don't want to put the wrong person in the situation, and they don't like it, or you've just wasted everyone's time, the hiring manager as well as everyone who sat on the panel, because we do have to have 3 to 4 people that do sit on the panels in order to get hired by the county. So it's super important that you bring the right candidate to the table so that everyone on that panel is saying, okay, I understand why you picked this person. And so I would do, once we selected the candidate through our scoring matrix, I would send out the offer letters. I would do the onboarding orientation every other Monday. And I would tell them about the county policies and procedures, put together swag bags for them. I was always a swag bag person. So I think it's the
Yeah.
Amazon thing, because Amazon always had a lot of swag. So I
Love that.
really enjoyed doing welcome packages for people and making them feel a part of the company. And I just think that that's really important. So I've always loved the staffing and recruiting role. I love when they ask me to do hiring events. I think it's super important to be kind of the face of and the cheerleader of a company, because
Mhm.
I get super excited about what I'm doing. And I definitely want someone that's coming on board to be really excited about what they're about to do. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so
All
that's why I
right.
really enjoyed the recruiting and the staffing portion of it. And each company has kind of given me a different role in it, but at the
Mhm.
end, it's all doing the same thing. It's onboarding, the next
Mhm.
candidate. So
Yeah, sure, that full cycle,
yeah.
of recruiting. So I did want to ask you, just because we were talking a little bit about your experience. So stepping back just a little bit, I
Mhm.
wanted to point out something that you mentioned to me yesterday when we were talking, because you do have, a varied skill set and
Mhm.
amount of positions that you have worked.
Sure.
And I always like to point out, why that is. So
Right.
why don't you share with me what you told me yesterday?
Sure. So I think of it as a positive, because I have been blessed with the fact that I've been able to work in so many different industries and be able to kind of speak on certain things, like working for big corporations, working for startups. My husband's job, I mean, he's been there with Amtrak for almost 16, 17 years now. And so, as you know, trains do travel everywhere. So that did take us kind of all over the place. And it did make me have to take a contract, because we just never knew when that next move was going to come or whatnot. And I grew up in the military, so I was very, very used to having to adjust and adapt to my, situations. And I made the most of it every single time. And I just also was very honest with employers when I knew that I didn't know if how long I was going to be there and whatnot. But on the very, very positive side, we are here to stay. We finally got what we wanted with Amtrak. It's all about seniority there. So it usually takes someone retiring in order to get down to where we are. And now that we are making this area in Florida our forever home, so that there is going to be no more of that jumping around.
Yeah.
But I will say I was able to take skills and meet friendship, have friendships and meet people and network, and I can't tell you how many times I've been at a company and then I went to another company and I knew that person, or I could talk on that person. And you never want to burn bridges, because you never know when you're going to end up, seeing that person down the road, or you're going to be interviewing that person too.
Sure. Or you might
So
work for that person. You never
exactly.
know. You never
So
know
I
how that
took
works.
it right. As much as it might feel like, it's jumping around. I took it as a positive, but now it's like I'm finally going to be able to put some roots down and grow and
Okay.
make the most of what I always do.
Wonderful. And then when you were at Amazon, I have worked with some other candidates in the past that have done HR and recruiting with Amazon. I understand, at least from those candidates, that they
Mhm.
have some pretty in-depth like KPIs, so like the performance indicators. What can you tell me about that?
So basically every day I have to send my labor orders, and we
Mhm.
get judged on everything. Because when that candidate comes in, they have an iPad where they are able to rate us, every
Okay.
single one of them. So that is also rating our performance, because they
Mhm.
can say, hey, this took too long to do this. They weren't friendly and that kind of stuff. So all of my reporting from my team had to go back to management, because we had, like warehouses that were out in the boonies, that were really hard to staff. And
Mhm.
so I had to give reasons why. Why aren't we getting these, so all these write up and these reports, because Amazon's all about numbers.
Yes.
So you really have to know how to read those numbers. When you're in
Mhm.
Salesforce, you have to, you're clicking on all these things in Salesforce, but you're sending those reports
Mhm.
out to them. So, and it's also grading your performance as well.
Yeah. And
Not
then it
only
helps you develop, as, internally, and helps you
correct,
grow professionally for sure.
correct.
All right.
It's
Well, so that leads me to my next question. What do you consider your most significant career achievement so far?
I want to say that with Amazon, being starting up the affinity groups in our area was super important. I was part of the Warriors at Amazon. I was part of the Black employees at Amazon, the
Mhm.
Latinos at Amazon, and that was, so that people at the warehouse didn't feel lost. It was kind of like you could join a sorority, and so these affinity groups, I would schedule them to either have blood drives, food donation giveaways, stuff in the community. And it wasn't surprising that they had came to me and asked me, but it was going to be me working, like taking time off, like, or not time off, but after my work week, I would work on Saturdays or Sundays out in DC doing food banks and this and that. So I think that was a really, really good achievement for me. I mean, they even flew American flag over the Capitol in DC and gave it to me afterwards. The Warriors at
Oh,
Amazon
wow.
did.
That's
So that was
awesome.
really, really nice, because it was a way to bring all of the employees together and network. And you could be a part of anyone. You don't have to be Latino to be a part of the Latinos at Amazon. So
Mhm.
it was really, really nice to get people to talk to others that might not usually talk to one another. So I think
Okay.
that was one of my biggest accomplishments there, that they
All
really
right.
enjoyed that I did that.
Well, great. So some of the roles that we were talking about, you would obviously be working independently as
Mhm.
well as part of a team. So how do you adapt to different working styles in different scenarios?
Sure, absolutely. I am a big listener. I'm very friendly, very outgoing, and I like to talk too, but I also like to listen, because I really think it's important to hear everybody's ideas. When you're working at places like Amazon and for Prince William County, you're getting everyone from every walk of life. And so you really have to be, adapt to anything. Well, Amazon, you have to adapt to change all the time, and there's some new policy that's coming out. But I really think it's important to not only get your work done, because that's important, but also make sure that the team is thriving as well, because my success is not success unless everyone else is successful as well. And so I'm used to doing some, like even doing the affinity groups. That was kind of my sidebar kind of gig. But I also had my main job of, orchestrating a team.
Mhm.
So I just think that that's really important to being open to change, and also being open to learning. And because, like I tell my husband, you're not always right all the time about everything. And I just think that, being able to listen to everyone else's ideas, but also being able to share yours. And, I'm very nice person. I have a very, like, outgoing personality, but I can be very laid back too. And so I
Mhm.
think it's important that, everyone comes together, and, at the end
Yeah,
of the day, that, you can say, I did the best that I could,
sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important.
Knowing your audience too, who you're working with. If you're,
Correct.
going into, like for me in my job, if I'm going into work with candidates in a warehouse, maybe for an office position, that I would maybe approach them a little differently than I would at a
Right.
very large insurance company. Knowing your audience
Absolutely.
and being able to, mesh well with all different,
Right.
types of positions
Right.
and people. All right,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, I don't have any more questions for you for this part of the interview, but don't hang up because we do have some more things to chat about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop
Okay.
it. Um,
Okay.
so don't go anywhere.